Hey everyone, it's Joy here, and I have two beautiful cards for you today using the Buds and Blossoms products. And I used the Foil It Buds and Blossoms, but there's also the Stamp with Coordinating Stencil. So I'm going to show you some of these products. I did not use all of them. Here's the Buds and Blossoms Stamp and Coordinating Stencils. Then you have the Buds and Blossoms die. The Sentiment Staples, which is you have the stamp and then there's also the coordinating die. The Foil It Buds and Blooms, I did use this. And the Foil It Sentiment Staples, I did not use this, but those dies will also die cut that. I used Pink Champagne, Watermelon, and Confetti Cake ink, along with the Bitty blender brushes, VersaMark ink, foam sticky circles, white embossing powder, and the anti-static tool. I used gold shattered glass deco foil, sea salt, pink champagne, confetti cake, and watermelon cardstocks, along with some vellum. Let's do the foiling of the backgrounds first. You get 5 of these cards. I'm going to be using 2. Here's that beautiful shattered glass deco foil. I have my Mink machine hot and set to 5. I am putting that in my carrier sheet with the pretty side of the foil facing up. I did let it cool down before I peeled back the foil, and look at how gorgeous that is. Now here is that stamp set. This would take the place of the Foil It sheet, so it's going to have all of the stems, and there's 4 stencils, but I will not be using the 4th one because that is also on the Foil It sheets. So I will be using 3 out of the 4 stencils and not the stamp set. If you did the stamp set, you would use all 4 stencils, if that makes sense. So if you don't have a foiling machine, get the stamp and stencil if you don't have the Mink machine, because then you can create these beautiful cards. And you could also, if you wanted, do some gold heat embossing with gold embossing powder. So that's another way to get that gold look if you don't have the Mink machine for foiling. The stencils have register marks. So I lined that up, and I'm going to start with the leaves, and I am using Confetti Cake. So this will be my green leaf color. I really like to use teal colors in the place of green. For me, I think it's really, really pretty. I'm just going to show you one of these backgrounds. I did both exactly the same as far as the stenciling colors go. I do change up the design a little bit at the end, but I'm going to finish ink blending this. I'm using the Bitty blender brushes. I just like to use those, but you could also use the large size ones, and that would probably cover it more quickly, but I like to have variations in the colors where some of your ink is a little bit darker than others, and so I like how that looks. Once again, I'm using the registration marks on the stencil to line up. So you'll see like little stem marks, and I can line that up and make sure that everything is nice and straight. I'm making sure that all of my areas line up from top to bottom, from the stencil to the background cardstock. And once it does, I do have pieces of tape on the back of my cardstock, and that's what's adhering to my stencil. Now let's use Pink Champagne. This is a lighter pink color. Again, I'm using my Bitty blender brushes, and I'm going to blend this over the top. Now, when you are done with all of your stenciling, take a dry, soft rag and just gently tap off or gently rub to get the excess ink that's sitting on the foil off. So let's peel back this stencil, and then we can get the 3rd and final one that we will be using. Let's line that up again using those same registration marks, and I will be using watermelon ink. It's a really nice deep pink color, and I can just blend over all of the open areas. And again, I'm letting some of the buds be a little bit lighter and some of them darker. I just like that. I like when you're stenciling, especially if you're using the Bitty blender brushes, you do have a little bit more control as far as shading and shadows and light areas go. Okay, that is done. Now, I did already die cut the Buds and Blossoms. The stem is from sea salt ink. Then there's 2 buds. That is die cut from Pink Champagne and Watermelon. Then the leaves are die cut from Confetti Cake. So I can adhere these together. I'm using some liquid glue. And the little buds have these cute little, I don't know, parts of the bud, and I'm alternating the colors. So the watermelon bud will have a pink champagne, like this little tiny bottom piece, and then the pink champagne bud will have a little watermelon piece. And there's 2 different types of buds, and I'll finish doing the rest of them off camera, but I'm just showing you how these go together. It's super quick and simple, and they are so darling. Look at how cute that is. Okay, let's stamp the sentiment. I have sea salt ink in my Misty. I'm stamping 2 sentiments from the Sentiment Staples stamp set. Now, remember, there is the Foil-It sentiment staples, but I decided to go with white embossing powder on sea salt cardstock. So I'm inking, I did my powder tool on my cardstock. I'm inking the stamps up with VersaMark ink, and then I can add my white embossing powder. And I did spill it there on the side because I forgot I'd already loosened the lid, but I was able to clean that up easy. And then I can take my heat tool to that and heat it till it's nice and melted. And then I can use the coordinating Sentiment Staples die to die cut out the happy birthday and the hello sentiment. I apologize for my head being in the way. I'm running that through my die cut machine, and now I've got these great sentiments. Now I trimmed out some pieces of vellum, and they are 1 inch wide. And this is where my design is going to differ a little bit. So these card panels are slightly smaller than an A2 size. That's how they come. I'm flipping over my piece of cardstock. I have my vellum on the front. It's all lined up. I used my grid marks on the grid paper here. And then I folded the vellum over. I'm adding my panels to an A2 size piece of sea salt cardstock. I think adding that gray is just a nice soft touch. So again, I'm using my grid marks to line this up, adding some tape runner on the back, folding my vellum over. So now there's no adhesive on the front. It's all adhered on the back. And then I can adhere this piece to another A2 size piece of sea salt cardstock. Now we can adhere our sentiments and our little buds and blossoms flowers that we die cut and glued together. I do want my sentiments, well, the one's a happy birthday sentiment will be popped up with foam tape. The hello will not. I'm using my circles, my foam sticky circles. But once the circles are gone, I just trim out the rest of it because it's all sticky and it just would go to waste if you only use the circles. So I just trimmed out some pieces, added it behind the happy birthday. I want to center that. I'm just going to gently place it there, not push it down yet. I want to make sure that I get my flowers all situated. And I did make 6 flowers, 6 buds total. 4 will go on one card and then 2 will go on the other. So now that my design is set, I pushed down my sentiment and now I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue. I want the buds to overlap each other and kind of hug around that sentiment. And this is really kind of a visually busy card because of that background, but I really love it. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's so good with all of this fun color. You also could do the buds and blossoms die in different colors as well if you wanted. But I loved that everything was exactly the same. So I adhered that hello sentiment to the vellum, and then all of the buds are adhered, and look at how fun that is, and especially with that foil-it background. But again, you can get that same look if you use the stamp set and some gold embossing powder. Look at how pretty that is. Okay guys, thanks so much for stopping by and watching. You can find all of these products at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Have a wonderful day. Bye.